Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am going to pass it over to Maria from MNP.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Clayton, and I am a senior manager at MNP LLP and working out of our Cambridge office. MNP is a leading national accounting, tax, business, and consulting firm in Canada. We proudly serve the response of the needs of our clients in the private, public, and non-for-profit sector. Through our partner-led engagements, we provide collaborative, cost-effective approach in doing business and personalizing strategies to help organizations succeed across the country and around the world. This morning, I'm pleased to welcome Blair. Blair has worked in the credit collection field for over 28 years. It is the managing director of the Kingston Data Credit Inc., a national third-party collection agency. He started his credit management and over the span of his career, he has trained over 300 collection agents, registered a company under ISO 27001 certification, and assisted with the consultation and presentation to the provincial government. The blog www.receivablececounts.com, and he works with a number of companies and partners and advisory to help them build a better business. He currently serves as a board member of the Receivable Management Association of Canada and a chapter president of the Credit Institute of Canada. Please help me welcome Blair.
Thank you very much, Maria. Good morning, everyone. I'm Blair DeMarco-Wetlaufer. I'm going to talk about collection techniques, how they should work in the before times and how they work now while we've been living in the last year during a pandemic, and the stresses that puts on our internal businesses and our clients and customers, which obviously are part of our billing cycle. This is somewhat conversational, so by all means, raise your hand in the Zoom features, and Melissa will let me know if somebody has a question. By all means, you can ask through this presentation. So a year ago, the pandemic hit. And just like all of you, I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if I'd have to scale back my business. I didn't know how this would affect all my customers, my clients, the companies we represent. And here we are a year later, and we're all working in a different world. We're working in a different kind of environment. But what I found, because hindsight is 2020, a lot of the techniques we used before, we're simply leaning into now into the pandemic, and we're leveraging that. So I have a presentation to make. I'm going to explain how collections should actually work, where it's not confrontational, and things that you can do during a pandemic. So give me a second here. Can you see that, Melissa?
Yes, I can see it.
Stellar. Okay, so when I started, I started as a credit manager for the Employment News in Kitchener many years ago, and my career brought me to collections. And I went to work at a collection agency where people were, this is the 80s, so keep that in mind, where people were smoking at their desk and yelling at the phone and demanding payment. And I went to university to be an English teacher. I took psychology. Demeaning or creating confrontation is not the way to collect a debt. People when they owe money are under a great deal of stress. And the important thing is to come across as an ally, not an opponent. So part of the way a debt should be presented in any time, not just a pandemic, is introduce who you are. Explain or display your authority. Explain the consequences for not respecting your authority. Give the consumers options, and your clients an A/B choice, and then get into the details. So the last thing you want to do is call somebody and go, Bob, you owe my company $10,824.56. At what point today can we expect payment in full? That is the wrong way, because you're not displaying your authority. You're jumping right to a dollar figure, which is a point for argument, and you're not pleasant. So when people think of collections and collecting money for their own company, they think of that and they think, oh God, I don't want to make that kind of call. You shouldn't. Your calls should be pleasant. At the end, your customer should thank you for calling and working with you. And believe it or not, even in third-party collections, we get Christmas cards with checks in them. We get 5-star Google reviews going, they treated me like a human being. There's a better way to do this. So the way we would do it in collections is we'd call somebody and say, hi, is Bob there? Bob, my name's Blair, from Kingston Data and Credit. How are you today? Bob, I've been asked to affect your credit rating. We're a credit reporting agency, and we can affect your credit rating for up to 6 years. And I don't see anyone's called you. So before we do that, I'd like to discuss this with you. Now, before I go any further, is your date of birth June 12th, 1974? By doing that, I've started with authority. I've displayed knowledge of the consumer. I've started with the consequences, and then we can work backwards. And any reasonable consumer would say, oh God, I don't want this on my credit rating. Well, not a problem. I'm here to help you. It looks like you owe XYZ Hydro. What do you want to do about this? Oh, I want to pay it in full. Awesome. You can get to the solution without getting into the dollar value. You start, it seems backwards, but you start with the consequences. Now, if you're collecting internally, you can do this a number of ways. You have authority, you have leverage. It can be ceasing services, changing them to cash on delivery. It can be sending them to collections. It can be, if you're a larger creditor, you're a trade line item. You can report it as an R2 or what have you. There are a number of leverages that you have. And it's important that when you call, you're pleasant about it. And then you give your client an A/B choice. And you want to, when you're making the presentation of the debt, you want to maintain pleasant authority. In sales, the customer is always right. And a lot of people who come from customer service backgrounds are taught to say please and sir and ma'am. Those are actually, if you use those words, it creates a subservient role. What you want to do is address your customer by their first name. You want to say you're welcome, not thank you. You want to use if-then statements. You never want to ask a yes/no question. Never ask a customer, would you like to pay this bill? Because if you do that, you're presenting an option of a yes or no. And if they say, no, I don't want to pay this bill, where do you go? What you want to do is give them an A/B choice. Do you want to pay this bill, or should I cut off your services? Choice is entirely up to you. What would you like to do? Now, obviously, in a perfect world, everyone would pay their accounts on time, and all the credit managers listening right now would be playing solitaire on their computer. That doesn't happen. Obviously, our customers and clients are under their own internal stresses, and they will display those stresses in a number of ways. Because if you're collecting from a company that is your client, and they owe 20 other companies and they're 90 days past due with all their creditors, you're going to get the symptoms of that problem. And it's not just you, their cash flow problems come across a number of ways. One can be avoidance. They don't call you back. They avoid your calls. They stall you at reception or an accounts receivable clerk rather than getting to a decision maker. They won't commit. They can't tell you when they're going to pay the bill. They'll say, well, I'll pay you when I get paid, conditional events, which is not ideal. And ultimately, if they're truly stressed, even in a business to business situation, they become emotional. Why are you calling me? You can't get blood from a stone. This is, I'm having a horrible time, and they'll get emotional. These are all just symptoms of the problem. And the important thing is not to get dragged into the symptoms. If someone's emotional with you, as a human being, it's your natural reaction to get emotional back. Don't. Look at it as just a symptom of the problem. Okay, so we talked before about A/B choices. Ultimately, if you think of a conversation like a flow chart, you want the conversation to flow a certain way. And you want to think, if they say this, then I will say this. And if you're working at a dentist office, you're going to run into the same issues or obstacles about personal insurance and reimbursement all the time. So you can be prepared for, okay, if my patient needs to get the funds from the insurance company, this is what I should say. If you're dealing with a very invoice heavy business to business company, you're going to deal with issues about invoice reconciliation. How are you going to deal with that? You need to have a plan before you pick up the phone, or before you send an email, or before you send a letter. The first thing, you want to establish authority. If you're doing 20 kilometers over the limit and a policeman pulls you over, you pull over your car, and the policeman, he's got the flashing lights, he's got the big hat, he's got the sunglasses on, even though it's night, and he walks up to your car and he says, "Do you know how fast you were going?" He's established authority and control without being aggressive. He's asked you a very simple question. Collections is like that. You want to establish authority. So it can be, "Hi, this is John. Bob, I'm the credit manager for XYZ company. Your account is escalated to me, and I have to make a decision on your account. Now, I don't have notes on what our accounts receivable clerk said to you. So I'm going to just give you a call, and we're going to have a conversation." That's a pleasant way to establish authority. And control is by giving non-open-ended questions. You want to ask questions. You do want information from your customers, but you don't want to ask open-ended questions like, "Do you want to pay this bill?" You want to ask more controlled questions going, "Okay, we have your account's over 60 days. When can we expect payment on this? What seems to be the issue in getting payment on this? Did you receive, invoice 1, 2, 3, 4? Do you need another copy of it?" You can ask questions, but control the conversation by asking limited questions. The other thing, because we're dealing often on the telephone or now in Zoom calls, we're dealing with human beings to human beings. If you sound unsure, uninformed, nervous, emotional, customers will respond to that. So the important thing is when you're talking to someone, speak with confidence. Even if they throw a curveball at you that you've never heard before, you need to be able to respond with confidence, with calmness, with self-assurance. You want to speak slowly and not be rushed. These are the key marks of what makes a good collection agent, but it can carry on into credit management. And credit managers and people running small businesses, wearing all the hats, no one's ever taught you how to control a conversation or talk to a customer with authority, and everyone's making it up. So it's important to look at how human beings respond to other human beings. And ultimately, if the conversation gets off track and gets out of your flow chart and goes off into the weeds, there's nothing wrong with restarting the conversation. And it can be, "Bob, I think we've gotten off track here. Let's start over. I'm the credit manager for XYZ company. Your account's escalated to me. I need to make a decision today. How would you like to deal with this?" You can always start over. Or if you're dealing with a business to consumer company, like a dentist company, a dental firm, or an insurance company, if your customer's getting emotional, you can create a circuit breaker and say, "Okay, Bob, this is clearly not a good time to talk. You're clearly stressed over this. Tell you what, let's do this again tomorrow. We'll start over, take the day to de-stress. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you're in a better headspace." You can absolutely do that. So this is collections in the before time. Now we're in a pandemic. So the important thing is remembering what our goals are. If we're calling a customer or a client because they're past due, the whole point is getting payment. But it's not just about collecting $500 today. It's about collecting $500 and keeping the customer. They don't hate your brand. They don't hate you. They're willing to deal with you in future. Ideally, you do not want to shrink your customer base. So sometimes payment in full is not an option. Sometimes you've got to compromise. Sometimes your customers will want to make payment scheduling. I can pay part now, or I can pay in 30 days. You need to be able to bend. The other thing that you want to do is you want to focus on actions, not words. If you have a customer that is promising to pay in a week, that's great. A week goes by, you call them, oh, I need another week. That's great. They're promising to pay, but their actions display they're not actually paying. So there are a couple things you can do in trading time or leniency for action. So one of the things we do here, and this happens on consumer and commercial collections, we call a company, they're financially compromised. We can't pay this right now. Our accounts receivable is out of control. We have all sorts of clients that owe us. We're in a pandemic. What we'll do is we'll say, okay, Frank, make a good faith payment. Show us that we can show our client, the creditor, that you have intent to pay this. So make a payment of any token amount, and I'll give you 30 days. That's a perfect example of trading leniency for action. So then you have XYZ company pay $100 on their $10,000 account. They are now psychologically committed to paying the balance. They've shown through actions they're willing to try to take care of this, and then in turn you give them 14 or 30 days. You can also do this with information. If you're dealing with consumer and they say, well, I can't pay you right now, my dental claim is with my insurance company, you can ask for information. Well, who's your insurance company? When did you file it? Can I have a copy of the claim form? So I can follow up with the insurance company and help you. You can ask for information from the customer. Obviously, you can only push to a certain point. It's not like you can ask a credit manager for their social insurance number and they're going to give it to you over the phone. So you have to ask for reasonable amounts of information. But if you're a landlord and your tenant hasn't paid, you can say, are you still employed? Are you having problems? Can we talk about this? You can ask questions so you have a better understanding of their circumstances. Now, the other thing you want to do is you want to stick to a schedule. Now, obviously, in a pandemic, that schedule can't be the same thing it was a little over a year ago. But if a customer is promising to pay and they're a friend of your uncle's and you don't want to offend him, and suddenly most of your customers are only 30 or 60 days past due, this one's 360 days past due, you haven't done anything, you do have to draw a line in the sand. Your DSO, or your days sales outstanding, you have to take certain steps at certain points. So if you have a customer that hasn't paid you in 120 days, you should really be considering not providing further services or applying the interest that's charged on your invoices. You want to, or sending it to collections or sending it to your lawyer. You do need to have certain lines in the sand you do not cross. And now those lines can change. What was 120 days in the before times might be 180 days in the pandemic. But ultimately, it depends what stresses your company can absorb because you're trying to get through a pandemic as well. And you need to have follow-up. So if Bob says, oh, I'd love to pay you now, but I can't pay you until next Friday, say, okay, I'll call you next Thursday to confirm our arrangements are still set up for next Friday. I'll need to hear from you. Understand that your account not going to collections is dependent on you making that payment next Friday. Do you understand, Bob? That's a perfect example of a non-confrontational way to hold a customer accountable to a deadline and consequences. If you do this, nothing will happen. If you don't do this, then we move to the next steps. And the other thing you want to do is you want to have positive reinforcement. Every call shouldn't be a bad news call. If it is, your customers will avoid you and they won't like you because, oh, it's Susan calling again. All she does is yell at me about my outstanding account. What you want is, hey, Bob, I see we put your file off on, for 7 days because you were going to make a payment of $100. Well, I see you made your payment of $100. Excellent. You've paid $700 to date. Your remaining balance is $1,421.85. Do you have any questions? That's a positive call. You're verbally complimenting them for keeping arrangements. So it's important that you stay in contact when good things happen as well as bad things. So now we're in a pandemic. And I can tell you at the beginning of this, I was truly worried for my company. I didn't know if I'd have to send all my staff home. I didn't know if they could work remotely. I didn't know what was going to happen with my clients. And we muddled through the first 2 months. And one of our large clients that sends us bank paper called us and went, Blair, I don't mean to be rude, but why are you collecting more? And we took a look, and we looked at our April 2020 statistics. And in April 2020, we spoke to 5,000 consumers across Canada. And obviously CERB had just rolled out. We were collecting from, I'd say 60% were consumers, 40% were businesses. So there was some support. And we looked, and out of the 5,000 customers we talked to, 150 claimed they were, their income was compromised. So almost none. And we looked, and the payment arrangements had actually increased by about 10%. And the number of people go from payment arrangements to payment in full had increased by 10%. The number of people we actually talked to, the number of people who answered the phone didn't change. So people being at home didn't change whether they saw our number on call display and picked up. But we looked at it, and more people were paying. And then in May, Equifax published a report saying that consumers under the age of 40 in Canada between March and May had reduced their credit card debt load by 25%. And obviously people have dug more into this, and people's lives have changed. They're not going to the mall. They're not impulse buying. If you want to buy something from Amazon, it takes forethought, planning, and 2 days of patience. It's not that you just saw something out of your eye. The amount of money we're spending on hotels and travel and entertainment and gas, this has all changed. So in some cases, if your client base are restaurants, yes, their income is completely compromised, and it's going to be incredibly hard to collect from them. But if you're collecting from consumers, in a lot of cases, they're financially better off. But ultimately, one of the big things is we're all stressed. The future is unknown. We don't know when life is going to get back to normal, and emotions are cranked to 120%. People who are stressed are incredibly stressed. People who are grateful to resolve their account are 120% more grateful than they were before. Everyone's emotions are running high. So it's important to be empathetic to people's circumstances. What worked in the before times isn't going to work in the pandemic. You need to slow down. You need to listen to your customers. You need to bend a little more than you did before. You also need to be aware that people's routines have completely changed. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people are working from home. Some people are working in the office and working 12-hour days because nothing's efficient in a pandemic world. And also it's affected your companies. You might have less people in the office, and things aren't just quite as efficient as they used to be because everyone's working remotely, and it's not like just walking, turning around and looking at another desk. The services you provide may have changed. Some of our clients are fitness clubs, and through this pandemic, they're open, they're closed, they're open, they're closed, and that wreaks havoc on a billing cycle. So it's important to recognize what your company is doing and how it's changed through the pandemic and how that impacts collecting from your customers. And ultimately, obviously, you need to collect on your accounts to keep your doors open. You have to keep your credit cycle going. But ultimately, this is all going to be over. It's going to be in the rearview mirror. We want our companies to be surviving and thriving, and you want to have the same clients or more clients than you did going into this pandemic. So it's important to look at the big picture. Is chasing commercial client X and collecting $10,000 now, oh my God, now, more important than working with company X for $1,000 a month over the next 10 months, and they're happy and they've worked with you, and you'll retain their business in years to come. So it's important to think about what you do today, how it'll impact you when the pandemic is over. And I know this sounds weird coming from a collection agent, but this is all about human communication and empathy and compromise. If you present a debt in a non-confrontational manner, you stop, you listen to your customer, what they say, what they don't say, read between the lines, and pay attention to their actions. And if you work on compromise and being human about things, you'll collect more money in the long run, maybe not in the first 10, 15 days, but in the long run, you'll be more effective and your business will survive. It will have a better chance of surviving and thriving long term. So honestly, the big secret here is listening and empathy and compromise. So things to do. Just to reiterate some of the things that you should be doing. Remember, when you reach out non-aggressively. Don't leave messages on voicemail like, Bob, you got to call me. This is incredibly important. I'll expect a call by 4 p.m. today. A better call would be, Bob, this is the 4th message I've left from you. I really need to talk to you. I can help you if you call me. Please get back to me. Here's my number. I'm here till 5 o'clock. Or if it's better, by all means, reach out to me by email. I'm happy to talk. When they call you back, be supportive and empathetic. Understand that stressed people will avoid you. If you come across confrontationally, it's human nature to avoid you. Be patient. We often in the collection world will get 1,000 accounts from our clients, and we'll collect from 20 of them on day one. We'll send out an email or we'll make a call, and the person on the other end of the phone, it's the collection agency calling, and the other end of the phone, you'll hear, those people will pay right away. Then there are the other people that we make arrangements with over a week or a month or 6 months because they're financially compromised. And then there are the people that it takes us 9, 12, 18 months to collect from because they're avoiding us. And we keep reaching out non-aggressively, but persistently, Bob, it's me calling again. We still need to talk to you. And eventually we get through. So the important thing is be patient through this whole process. Keep trying to make contact. Don't try, and also, if a customer says, my company's upside down, our financial situation is a mess, I need time to look at this. Don't force the issue and say, well, I need an answer today. Give them an opportunity to come back to you with a follow-up call or a follow-up email or a follow-up meeting. Set deadlines, but don't think you can solve everything with just one call. And if your customers show through action that they're willing to work with you by making a payment or paying off their latest invoice, or even just calling you back, that's a sign of a customer that's willing to work with you. Those are positive actions. Recognize that, log that in your notes, and keep track of those as positive customers that are working with you. And obviously, for the 4 times and now, keep emotion out of it. This is a business transaction. You should not be emotional. They should not be emotional. You should, and if it does get emotional, step away. Get them to step away, start over. And obviously, other things you can do, if you've got the ability to, say you're a fitness club, and you've got the ability to say, okay, we're going to waive the next 2 months of invoices because our club was closed for 45 days. That's an example of you bending. Or normally we charge interest on overdue accounts. We're not going to do that for you, Bob, because you're trying to work with us. That's an example of flexibility you can cover. If you have a customer that's been good with you for 10 years and things have gone sideways just in the last 6-9 months, obviously take that into consideration. And ultimately, keep your customers. Again, this is going to sound weird coming from somebody who owns a collection agency, but if you send all your customers to me as a collection agency, your company's in bad shape, and you won't be an ongoing customer of mine because everyone went to collections. You've got to keep the relationships alive. You've got to keep your customers in good standings. You've got to have positive reinforcement of good behavior. You've got to, ultimately, people choose now what businesses they deal with. And they do research on the internet. They know more about your industry than sometimes you do. So it's important that you create a positive experience for customers. So when times are good, they're happy to deal with you. When times are bad, they're still happy to deal with you. That's incredibly important. So I'm obviously rambling at great speed here. I want to give you guys some resources to go through. There's a book called Paid in Full by Tim Paulson. He has a website. He used to collect for Simpson Sears. He's also incredibly funny. And he talks about collection techniques and how to collect your accounts internally in your own business. Scott Stratton does a number of books. He lives in Markham. He's done the book Unmarketing, Unselling, and the book of Business Awesome, which I have a spelling mistake on. The book of Business Awesome talks about how to create positive business experiences so customers keep coming back to you. The Ultimate Credit and Collections Handbook is written by a US-based author, but is excellent for credit managers or small businesses trying to wear a credit management hat on how to manage your internal accounts. The Credit Institute of Canada is a national learning organization. They have a number of articles in their knowledge base website that will help you with what the collection regulations and laws and techniques, best practices are. You can certainly join a number of LinkedIn groups if you're looking for support. The Canadian group of credit and debt collection services is collection agencies, lawyers, creditors. You're not in this alone. Credit managers' challenges today are the challenges of every other credit manager. So reaching out for help is not a bad thing. The Receivables Management Association of Canada, I'm a member of the board of directors of that. It's a national organization, and large creditors such as banks and insurance companies and the credit bureaus, all the way down to small regional creditors, are members of the RMA, and members get to communicate directly with a number of experts in the industry. It's been amazing for me. And when new laws come out or new proposed laws come out, members have input on whether they're good laws. And lastly, while it's Toronto-based, the Credit Association of Greater Toronto is now an online organization, and they have webinars. They just had a webinar yesterday on the effect of the pandemic on credit. So there's a number of universal articles that are useful there. And of course, there's me. I'm wordy and opinionated. So I maintain a blog called receivableaccounts.com, where I publish credit articles, consumer awareness articles, and best practices, not just for the collection industry, but for companies as well, such as templates of letters you can use so a file doesn't have to go to collections, or ways to approach a customer conversationally that doesn't create stress or conflict. And I welcome you to obviously go look at my blog. And that is my presentation. So if anybody has questions or comments, I am absolutely happy to share more specific examples if anyone has any specific questions.
If anyone does have any questions, you can either put it in the chat box or raise your hand and I can unmute you. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, Blair, did you want to do some polls that we have?
Sure, absolutely.
So I'm going to put up the first poll that we have. And if you just want to take a few seconds to vote on that.
Well, that's it. That's neat with the live feedback. So it looks like a pretty even split of business to business and business to consumer.
I will put up the next poll that we have.
I didn't really get into this part. One of the things that's useful in sales, they talk, collections is like the opposite of sales in a lot of ways, but some of the techniques are the same. So often when you're trying to sell somebody something, you call them and they don't return your call. So then you try an email and they don't respond to your email. And then you reach out to them on LinkedIn and they respond to you on LinkedIn. Everyone has a preferred channel. It's important to keep a track of which way your customers have historically responded to you, and don't be afraid to change channels. So if you've communicated with your customers by email and suddenly they go quiet, well, now it's time for a phone call, or it's time for an SMS. And if you find historically that customer always responds to an SMS or always responds to an email, make a note of that on their customer profile. So you as the credit manager or the person responsible for your credit cycle can jump to your customer's preferred communication channel of choice.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I will put up the last poll. No questions have come in as of yet.
Okay, and this is another important thing. So files end up in collections, and we as a collection agency, we have the benefit of hindsight. We have the benefit of knowing everything that's gone wrong because we only get the accounts that have gone wrong. And often we'll get somebody who'll send over a customer and they're only 30, 60 days past due. And we'll pick up the phone and we'll call it, and the phone number's out of service. So we'll look up the main line and we'll call the company and ask for the credit manager, Bob Smith. Oh, Bob Smith hasn't worked here in 2 years. A lot of companies are so busy running around, they're not talking to their customers in good standing and gathering information about their customers in good standing. So ideally, once every 6 months, but if you have to, once a year, you want to talk to your customers and you want to review your information on file and make sure it's accurate. And the best way to do that is to make an effort to have a positive conversation. Again, you're not the bad guy. And it could be you're a fitness club. And you reach out, hi, we're having a mud run on June 1st. I'm just calling to let you know about it. Is your cell number still this so we can send you an SMS message? Are you still living at this address if we send you a flyer? Are you happy with everything we're doing? Is there anything we can do for you? This is your opportunity to tell us what you think of our company. That's a good call. And at the same time, you've verified and updated your customer information. If you're calling a client, hi, I'm your customer account manager. Your accounts come up for review. It looks like you've been a customer of ours for 4 years. Thank you very much for your business. I'm just checking, is so-and-so still the credit manager? Is so-and-so still the principal of the company? Is this still your mailing address? What way would you like to receive invoices, by email or by mail? Like, you can use that as a fact-finding mission, and it can be a positive call. And that way, your information is up to date. So this is, and never mind the emotional side of thank you for your business. We're happy to have you as a customer.
Thank you very much, Blair. And there are no questions at the moment. I am going to put up our YouTube channel, and this is where you can find this video later on today or tomorrow. If you just want to jot down the Cambridge Chamber, and that's where you can find this presentation on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Blair. It was great having you.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. I hope this is of use to people.
You are very welcome. I hope you have a good weekend, and I hope everyone else has a good weekend. And we will see you later. Enjoy your day. Thank you.